Okay, 11 a.m. CET. Let's start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the launch event of our EU Market Outlook 2020-2024. My name is Michael Schmela, and I'm the Executive Advisor and Head of Market Intelligence at SolarPower Europe, the Association of the European Solar Sector. I am excited to moderate today's one-hour event and to present and discuss together with some colleagues and guests the latest results of our market research on solar in the European Union. First, a few words and to really say thank you. This is a truly Europe-wide collaborative effort, which to this extent and detail is only possible with our members, in particular the national and solar associations. Thanks a lot for their incredible support and contributions we have received for this report, which will be available for download at the end of this event. Briefly on the agenda, in the next 60 minutes, I will first share our market outlook with our Deputy CEO and Policy Director, Aurélie Beauvais, then explaining the latest policy trends we are seeing in the EU and which are the base for our market forecasts. We will have then brief messages from executives of Europe's 3 largest solar markets, describing the solar developments in these countries, what's the most important drivers there, and I think this is important, what they would really like to see from Brussels to enable further growth. And taking this into account, our CEO, Walburga Hemmetsberger, will then have a fire chat with Paula Abreu-Marquez, Head of Unit Renewables at DG Energy at the Commission, to discuss the role of solar in the European Commission's strategy until 2030. Okay, first 15 minutes for me. Let me give you a brief overview on our new EU Market Outlook results. Next slide, please. So we usually start our report with slides on cost. Next slide. Oops. Simply to put solar into perspective. We've chosen this chart to show how the pandemic has impacted solar in a field that actually has become one of our technology's biggest assets, and that is cost and competitiveness. On this chart, you can see the levelized cost of electricity for solar power plants in different countries for the next 30 years and under different interest rate conditions. While in 2019, and these are the symbols actually which are fully filled, which are not fully filled, while in 2019, solar was really able to compete easily, both with industrial and wholesale electricity prices from north, so that means from Finland to south and Spain. This has changed actually during the pandemic. So in the first half of the year, both in industrial wholesale prices, electricity prices really dropped quite a bit, often significantly, making it for solar much harder to compete. And you can see that in particular in Finland, actually, where you see that the wholesale prices in 2020 actually are now in the blue field, which is a field for pretty low backs, so that means interest environment, an interest rate environment. And we can actually also see in Finland that this is actually having a direct impact on growth. Next slide, please. But here comes the big however. We are still glad to be able to say that power in the European Union has shown strong resilience in 2020, the big word, strong resilience for solar, despite coronavirus negatively impacting basically everyone's life in many aspects. For those who are following the solar sector for a while, or years, or maybe even decades, positive surprises are not unfamiliar. Well, these include surpassing expectations in terms of steep cost reduction, solar's flexibility, its user friendliness, the manifold applications we're seeing for solar, and always new coming up like floating solar, agri PV, and other things. And obviously its rapid growth rate. But the last surprise we are seeing is a really big one, especially also to us. The solar market not only grew in a year defined by the pandemic, but even in double digits, by 11% to 18.2 gigawatt. If you had asked me and probably any analyst covering the sector what they would expect 6 months ago, at least I'm not aware of any who has forecasted growth for the European Union at that time. Next slide, please. What we see is that the rankings have changed in 2020. We forecasted that actually in our former outlook, last year's EMO, that Germany is again the largest market. So for the records, it's the 14th time in the last 20 years. And it is now followed, probably second and third are close, by the Netherlands, which moved up one rank according to our research after installing an estimated 2.8 gigawatt. That's over 23% up from the 23 gigawatt they installed in 2019. Spain's time on Europe's solar throne this year lasted only 1 year, which was to be expected. Later more on this. They installed 2.6 gigawatts. That's down from around 45% from the 4.8 gigawatt they added last year. Biggest surprise on EU solar map is again Poland. So the EU's coal bridgehead, where hard and lignite I think still represents around 75% of power demand. Last year, not only exceeded the annual installed solar gigawatt scale for the first time, they even directly jumped to the second floor, adding over 2 gigawatts. So these are the only countries in the gigawatt scale. Next slide, please. When we look at total installed capacities, we see the same pattern as for annually added capacities. Cumulative installed PV capacity also grew, in this case by 15%, now to 137 gigawatts. And the good thing is that it seems that time has come that really the vast majority of EU member states have been jumping on the solar train. Still directed by a few pioneers who carry most of the growth on their shoulders. But what we could see is that 22 out of 27 EU member states installed more solar than the year before. In comparison, last year we had 21 out of 28 installing more solar. A surprisingly positive 2020 for the EU solar sector will be followed by 4 years characterized. One second, sorry. Sorry, that was the heater. Next slide, please. Okay, a surprisingly positive 2020 for the EU solar sector will be actually followed by 4 years characterized by even stronger demand in our medium scenario, which is the orange line you can see there. So after demand improved by, as I mentioned, 11% in 2020, we expect now 23% boost in 2021. And installations will reach 22.4 gigawatt. And that number would mean an all-time high for the European Union, being the decade-old 21.3 gigawatt record from 2011, which probably many of you can still remember. That was the first feed-in tariff phase where Europe, Spain, Italy, and a few others were really pushing a lot of demand. So market growth will also not slow down in 2022. So when we expect that new annual additions will reach over 27 gigawatts, and although we anticipate that the growth rate will slow down a little bit to 13 and 14% in 23-24, both years are anticipated to see solar deployment rates above the 30 gigawatt level. Next slide, please. Also here, cumulative PV market scenarios from 2021 to 24 show constant two-digit annual growth rates, and they are also a little higher than our previous EU market outlook. The medium scenario now forecasts between 16 and 17% growth rates. Last year we had between 13 and 16%. And that would mean that in the next 4 years, we would add around 116 gigawatts and would reach, in our medium scenario, 253 gigawatts. Just to say it again, 253 gigawatts, that's a quarter of a terawatt. I can still remember very well, only a few years ago, when we celebrated passing the 100 gigawatt solar operating fleet in the EU. Next slide, please. So, as the association representing the European solar sector, we are really deeply relieved about the encouraging development in 2020 for our industry. And with that said, the growth seen in 2020 is still 12% less than projected in our previous market outlook. You can see that on the left for the annual additions marked in red. And we anticipate that although we see now strong growth coming for the next few years, we still see that it will take until 2022, and we're really optimistic in our outlook that it will take until 2022 before demand for solar PV systems will have compensated the delays in deployment caused by COVID-19. So that means we have lost really precious time in our race against climate change, and we have to speed up. I think one cannot repeat that often enough. Next slide, please. In line with our general very positive EU market outlook, we are more upbeat on the solar developments in the largest EU markets. For most of these markets, the 4-year installations forecast expect more additions than previously. So we see that the top 10 markets together install nearly 100 gigawatts. According to our most probable medium scenario. Our low scenario, which is very, very unlikely to happen with all this momentum and on the support that we will get from the European Commission and with the Green Deal, the recovery funds. So it's very unlikely to happen. So it's rather possible that if member states really put in place and take these offers granted by the Commission, that we would see even more positive growth. So and that could be then go up to almost 131 gigawatts in our high scenario. So what's interesting is that the 4 largest markets, Germany, Spain, Holland, and France, at least according to our analysis, will add more than 10 gigawatts. Poland is close to 10 gigawatts, and Italy obviously has also quite some upside potential, but we really have to see if that will finally take place. We've been waiting for that quite a while. Next slide, please. We always do this weather forecast for our European and global market outlooks, and as you can see, our EU solar weather forecast has not changed basically from last year. So we will see again a very sunny business environment for solar power in the coming years in the EU, with only few clouds limiting the sun from shining fully bright, everywhere. So we see just 3 of the top 15 solar markets that have clouds on the horizon. That is Germany, Italy, Belgium. The choice might seem odd at first glance because Germany is among that as the market leader. But if you look at the compound annual growth rates, you simply see that it's basically Italy, Belgium, and Germany that have less, so 1-digit or very, very low level 2-digit growth rates. Nearly all the others are expected to boost demand by over 20%. And we also see policy issues in these 3 countries. Again, while we see a very, very sunny climate for the next few years for solar in the EU, we cannot emphasize this often enough. The ambitions must increase. So we can do more, and we need to do more to be able to comply with the Commission's goal, becoming really carbon neutral by 2050. Next slide, please. Here we show basically a breakdown for the top 10 solar markets in 2020 and in 2024. And the key takeaway here is that first, we anticipate the market to almost double in the next 4 years. And second, that means Germany will continue to lead the region, but it will have a smaller share of 20% compared to 27% today. And what we will also see is that demand, and that's already taking place today, will further diversify to smaller countries. The top 10 markets share will decrease from 90% today to 84%. Let's have a brief look into the 3 largest markets. Next slide. Okay, very quickly. First, number 1, Germany. I think yesterday has changed quite a bit. Apparently, the government coalition has agreed on changing the draft legislation for the EEG 2021, which is supposed to be passed in the 2nd and 3rd reading in Parliament later this week, which brings a lot more positives for the solar sector in Germany. Nevertheless, I think there's still some caveats. Our member BSW has criticized yesterday many of pending topics. And so that we have not covered everything of that in this overview. Nevertheless, I think we are still, as you can see, pretty optimistic, but foresee towards later this or our forecast period in 2024 a decrease because of what was written in the last draft. That might have to be revised in a week, but for the rest, we feel pretty confident that the next 2 years we will see very steep growth because of the many new tenders that we've seen, and these systems have to be deployed. I have to speed up. Next slide, please. What we've done actually in this market outlook, and you can look at this into detail when you've downloaded the report, for any of the 27 member states, we have looked at what the countries have actually given in terms of their national energy climate plans to reach the 2030 EU targets. And you can see actually how far they are now. For example, here Germany has reached already 56% of what they want to reach. They want to reach 98 gigawatts. Then you can see on the right also always what the capacity will be. So that means what their target is and what the EU average is. So Germany's NECP PV target for 2030 means that the wattage per capita installed is bigger than what the EU actually will have in average. You will here see also some of the key challenges that we're still seeing that is probably now changing. I do that actually for one more country before I end. Next slide, please. Second largest market in Europe is the Netherlands. So I think we will continue to see further strong growth. This growth forecast is not ours. It's from Holland Solar, the Association of the Dutch Solar Sector. They are pretty optimistic, but it's basically in line also what we are seeing. And I think the interesting thing here is that one of the pillars of the growth, that's basically the tendering scheme SDE Plus is being changed. So as of next year, Solar has to compete also with CCS, and that will be quite interesting to see how that will turn out. Next slide. And this is also the analysis that we've seen. Holland Solar has reached 34% of its NECPs. And again, I think when you look at that also very carefully, because what we're seeing is that the NECPs in total are not ambitious enough. So that means even if a country might have complied actually fully with that, that might actually be not enough for Europe to meet its 2050 targets. Then we flip over the next two. Next. So I think, and yeah, next. And then let me quickly come to my conclusions here. So first of all, solar, and that's great news, has proved much more resilient to COVID-19 than anticipated in last spring. Great thing is market grew by 2 digits to 18 gigawatts and by 15% on when we look at total installed capacities, and with the vast majority of member states adding more solar than the year before. We will also see solar continue to grow fast towards 35 gigawatt level in 2024 from 18 today, bringing total capacity to 1/4 terawatt. There's a big but: new capacity additions in 2020 is 12% less than forecasted, and we expect it will take until 2022 to return to the earlier assumed growth volume. While most member states have acknowledged solar and in their NECPs, the ambition is much too low. When we compare that with our 100% renewable Europe report, which we published earlier that year, I think we need to actually install, or the NECPs should be 2.5 times higher in order actually to reach one of our scenarios that is Paris Agreement compatible. That's it from my side. If you have any questions, please send me an email. I'm happy to answer that to you. Next presentation will be given by my dear colleague, Aurélie Bouvet, who's our Deputy CEO and Policy Director, and she will shine some light on the key policy trends that will shape the European solar sector and are the base for the growth and our forecast. Aurélie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Michael, and hello, everyone. I think it was a great way to start the day, and as we could see, the keyword for this year is resilience, and as always, we have outpaced our own scenarios. But to confirm these very, I think, cool forecasts that we have for the next 4 years, of course, having a sound regulatory framework at European level will be critical, which is why I'm delighted to introduce to you some other parts of our European market outlook, which you will find in the report, which are looking at the key policy trends that will shape the market for solar in the next 4 years to come. We have to start with the beginning, which is the new Commission and the very ambitious commitment from Ursula von der Leyen, the new President of the European Commission, back in February 2020, which committed to make Europe the world's first climate neutral continent. And obviously, this is a very welcome ambition, but it will require to go very much beyond what has been done so far in terms of regulation, beyond the clean energy package, which is the last piece of legislation we have been adopting at European level. So in the European market outlook, you will find 10 policy trends, but in this presentation, we had to pick and choose, unfortunately, and choose to focus for you on 5 main trends, which we think you should definitely have in your radar. Starting with the next slide. The first element is really reviewing the ambitions. If we can move to the next slide, yes, perfect. The ambitions that we have set for 2030 have to be reviewed because it was adopted in 2019 and becoming climate neutral is a completely different set of hands. So here we will be looking at 2 important developments. There is a package which is called then the Fit for 55 package, which we should expect in June 2021. And the role of this legislative set, which is promised by the Commission, is to ensure that we can reach our increased ambition, and notably the one to achieve at least 55% of CO2 emission reduction by 2030. So that is the new commitment, which was adopted 1 week ago by the Commission. And by member states. And for that, one key milestone will be as well the review of the Renewable Energy Directive, the RED II, where we see a strong opportunity first to enshrine a higher target, which has anyway to be increased to reflect the new CO2 emission reduction ambitions. But we can also definitely take this opportunity to remove very lengthy and complex administrative procedures which have been hampering the growth of solar this year and in the past years, and that is actually a joint call which we have with the whole renewable sector. We can take the opportunity to unlock the growth for corporate PPAs, and we will need to look at as well increasing ambition for hydrogen and how it will be reflected in the framework for renewable energy in general. Another missing link, which will have to be completed in 2021, is carbon pricing. How can we make sure that we transition to clean energy technologies across all sectors? And here we expect some interesting proposals as well from the Commission side on the revision and extension of the emission trading scheme mechanism, the ETS, as well as a proposal on the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Going to the next slide, another key piece is going to be to work on the hardware. So we have high ambitions, we can definitely achieve them, as Michael demonstrated once again, solar in particular keeps being as competitive and even more competitive every year. The potential is there, but we also need a hardware. And here that's everything that will come to the European strategy on energy system integration and hydrogen. Here the key word is first and foremost electrification, which will be driving really the bulk of CO2 emissions in the next decade, and will be key as well to deploy much more renewables on the system. The Trans-European Network for Energy regulation here is quite critical. It will be proposed by the Commission today, and we very much hope that it will leave to the needs of the sector to have much more modern and upgraded electricity grids. Grids are becoming a major bottleneck in Europe to achieve our targets, and the 10E must solve that. And we will hopefully have an answer today. Secondly, there are interesting recommendations next year which are coming on system efficiency, and here electrification can really single out its needle as well from the game. Looking at the next slide, it is also in the same package maybe than energy system integration, but as you all know, the European Union has developed strong ambitions for renewable hydrogen, and so do we at SolarPower Europe. We believe that renewable hydrogen is becoming a very interesting market for renewables. A latest study from Material Economics assessed that the potential for demand for renewable-based hydrogen could reach 540 terawatt-hour in Europe, which is a new and interesting market for us. But here we need to make sure that we are putting our investments in the right places. And so the big challenge at European level will be to ensure that while the Commission clearly expressed a prioritization for renewable-based hydrogen solutions, this is very well reflected in the policies of the member states, because we see sometimes a will to keep the door open to all kinds of technologies, and this is not, from our perspective, the way we will bring this revolution forward. So very strong point in the radar, this one. Going to the next slide, the fourth big policy trend we wanted to share with you also relates to a big topic of the Green Deal, which is green growth and developing a new industrial strategy around clean energy technologies. Here we see solar, of course, as a key pillar and a key asset for Europe, and we're happy to report that it is finally making its way through European Commission and member states. Earlier this year, 7 member states asked for a renewable industry alliance to be developed at European level. And we think this year will be critical, and especially a review of the European industrial strategy, which we expect in March next year, should hopefully establish such alliances and notably put in place the right toolbox to support solar manufacturing in Europe. The last policy trend we wanted to share with you, but not the least, will come at the end of 2021, and that is the review of the European State Aid Guidelines Framework. It will be absolutely critical for the future of solar, because it will basically tackle 4 big points. First, adapting our existing tendering guidelines to the new needs, either to foster flexibility or storage, but also to support new technologies, such as floating solar or agri-PV. It will also be looking at the potential introduction of new bonuses in tenders, such as for environmental performance or land use, and it will adapt to new challenges such as repowering, hybridization, but also hydrogen and the deployment of large-scale solar in general. One opportunity which we see is also to use this new state aid framework to satisfy one of the key objectives of the Green Deal, which is to support an industrial strategy and solar manufacturing activities. So that is 5 big policy trends we need to have in the radar. But then when we move to the next slide, this was a very ambitious plan, and then this happened actually almost at the same moment in February 2019. Moving to the next slide, and as the COVID-19 crisis has strongly perturbated our economies and our way of life, as Michael showed, there are hopes looking at the resilience of the solar sector, but there is also a big hope with what we call Next Generation EU, which is the recovery plan of the European Union, which promises 672 billion for green growth. And at SolarPower Europe, we have 5 ideas on how this could be spent wisely, creating jobs and building on the strong job potential of the solar industry to really trigger a green recovery. So if we go to the next slide, we could use the recovery flagship initiative Power Up to significantly boost utility scale solar and storage. As Michael showed, utility-scale solar today is the most affordable and cleanest energy source in Europe. That means more competitiveness for our industries on top of boosting our climate targets. And here we see a big opportunity for member states to develop additional tenders or foster PPAs, or even propose the risking tool in the countries that have higher WACCs, for example. Looking to the next slide, boosting utility-scale solar can be a very nice fit as well with the agenda of the just transition. So we could use the recovery fund to reconvert former coal and industrial sites with solar. That will make sure that we support the energy transition of coal-intensive regions, and on the other hand, ensure that those workers that might also have to be reskilled could benefit from new opportunities. Looking at the next slide, we have been now focusing on utility scale installations, but rooftop solars are actually also a very nice fit for recovery. They are the most job intensive energy sources actually, and point, that's all. This is the most job intensive energy source. And therefore, if we were to develop European solar rooftop programs, that would really, on the one hand, harvest a potential which is largely untapped for clean energy generation. And on the other hand, significantly boost job creation. We can think of having solar mandates like in California. We can think of also mixing renovation strategies with the development of rooftop solar installations. Looking to the next slide, recovery funds can be very well used as well to promote electrification in general. I said it earlier, we absolutely need to have more ambitious frameworks in Europe. We need more grids, we need more infrastructures, and the flagship initiatives Power Up, Renovate, and Recharge could really serve this purpose. So we call on member states to use these funds and make sure we can have the hardware needed for the transition. Looking at the next slide then, we can also use the funds to support our industrial strategy agenda and make sure that solar manufacturing facilities can be boosted by recovery funds with funding for startups or facilitating, for example, access to finance. This is something which could also go hand in hand very nicely with the just transition agenda. And maybe the last recommendation we have for spending the recovery funds, finance trainings and reskilling programs. We need to invest in the skills of the future. Our solar companies are very ambitious, they are ready to deliver, but they need skilled workers across all European countries. That is good because many workers today need as well new trainings and the possibility to adapt to most promising and high growth sector. So here there is a demand from the sector and from European citizens, and we could definitely use the recovery funds to match this demand and train our European citizens to work with us and deliver the energy transition that we need. So that was 5 key policy trends and 6 recommendations for the European recovery funds. You can find all the information needed in our European Market Outlook. And now I give back to our colleague Michael Schmela and look very much forward to the next sessions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Aurélie. So great recommendations. So we know what to do best with at least some of the money we will see in coming for the recovery of the economies. Next part of this this report launch is 3 brief messages from executives of the 3 largest markets. So it's always 3 minutes, which you will see. The first will be given by David Wiedepohl, the Managing Director of BSW. Then comes Peter Molengraaf, Chair of Holland Solar. And finally, it will be José Donoso, the President of the Spanish Solar Association, UNEF. So we will have these statements now being played actually for the next 10 minutes. Each one is 3 minutes. Before we then afterwards start with the fire chat between our CEO Walburga and Paula Marquez from the European Commission, discussing, among others, these statements and the results of our report. So let's start first with David. talking out of Berlin.
Dear Wahlburger, dear Mrs. Marquez, dear participants of today's presentation of the Solar Power Outlook. This is David from the German Solar Association, and I'm glad that I can at least virtually be there. We're here at our new headquarters at the Europe campus. We moved in 2 days ago, so please excuse our appearance. It's all a bit improvised, but I would like to take you into the interaction about what's going on here in the home market in Germany and what that has to do with EU policy and maybe how that interaction can be beneficial. So the climate debate has taken a big step forward here with a phase out of coal until 2038. We think we could be more ambitious than that. And the EU is discussing the new climate targets for 2030, which are more ambitious, and that does matter to the German government because they do want to meet them. So at the same time, we're seeing renewables provide about half of the electricity this year. Solar alone is contributing 50 terawatt hours in 2020 to that. So the developments are a step forward, but they're not enough to meet the climate goals. And to be completely honest, as you know, the EU is only meeting them because of the pandemic and not because of very smart and ambitious policies. So in Germany, the coal phase out and the phase out of nuclear at the same time lead to, with the lack of the ramp up of renewables, the possibility of a power gap. And we've done the math. We're Germans, we like to do the math, and we figure that is going to happen in 2023. Now, in the beginning, we can compensate for some of that with electricity imports, but we're really, really worried, and we're wondering why the government is not more ambitious in ramping up renewables, wind and solar, which are most of our resources. So it's clear that the main driver is going to be solar, not because it's cheapest, as you know, but also because it's so popular with the population. We have the capability to quickly add a lot more. We have done that in the last 10 months. Even though there's a pandemic, we've added 4 gigawatts to our market. But instead of promoting the further expansion of solar, the government is, at least in the amendment of the German Renewable Energy Act, threatens us with a market decline, particularly when it comes to prosumption. So with these new barriers, we're really worried about, and this is where EU policy really helps. Now, we're glad about the lofty goals of a new European Bauhaus, but the impulses from Europe, they help because they interact with the national dialogue we have in Germany, and we see a strong discussion about the implementation of the European Renewable Energy Directive, particularly when it comes to self-consumption, where Germany is a laggard. Overall, we think there are 3 points important for the EU to promote solar expansion in Germany. And that is, A, to really set ambitious climate targets as a basis for ambitious energy transformation and strong European ETS systems. And to create very clear EU requirements for self-consumption, thus eliminating current divergent opinions about the implementation of requirements of RED II, and thirdly, to acknowledge that there are different needs for the different solar market segments in the revision of the EU energy subsidy directives. So these are the 3 main points we think are important. And don't be upset, dear colleagues from SolarPower Europe, but I would like to use the opportunity for a cross-promotion, because we just learned that our flagship event, the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue, is going to take place on 16th and 17th of March at the German Federal Foreign Office this year. Now, most of it is going to be virtual, but we also hope for a very strong European participation, and I hear we might have an American guest. So I hope that we can all restart green in 2021, and I hope to see you in person without wearing one of these masks. Take good care and please stay healthy. Bye from Berlin.
Hi, my name is Peter Molengraaf. I'm the chairman of the Dutch Solar Association, and I'd like to give you a short overview of the developments in the Dutch market and look ahead with you of some of the challenges you see in that market, and conclude with a request for you as European policymakers. The Dutch solar market, despite COVID-19 challenges, has been doing very well this year. We added around 3 gigawatts of installed capacity. And we have another 12 gigawatts in the pipeline. So looking ahead to 2024, we will see a total installed capacity which is 20 to 24 gigawatts peak, mostly rooftop, 70%. And I think we should remind ourselves that that's actually more than there is demand on an average day in the Netherlands. So integration of solar into the system and expanding the electricity system will be very important. The growth of the Dutch solar market in the context of the overall climate agreement is driven by 3 factors. There's the net metering scheme, the tender-based feed-in tariff, and an incentive scheme for energy communities. Looking ahead, we do see some challenges though. We now see competition in the tender scheme which is now carbon dioxide based from, for example, CCS projects. Also, the natural gas prices are really low at the moment, which makes electrification less attractive. And as I said before, looking ahead, we really need the electricity system to expand into mobility and industry to keep on the growth. That brings me to our policy request. What we need for the Dutch market to continue to grow and prosper is a direct link between green electricity production and demand. A link in time and place. We call it super guarantees of origin. And I think there is now technology available in blockchain that can actually make that possible with smart meter and blockchain technology. So that link that would show and demonstrate that the new production is really 100% emission free. And I think that would really support the further electrification of our system and the decarbonization of our society. Thank you very much and wish you a very nice day.
The PV technology in Spain is a new dawn. We are in a very good moment, a brilliant moment. Last year we connected 4,200 new megawatts to the grid, plus 450 megawatts of self-consumption. This was our record year. This year, 2020, we have an important milestone. We have connected to the grid already 1,400 megawatts, but the importance of this megawatt is for the first time we are connected to the grid projects without any subsidy, any tender, any auction, nothing. Our project, merchant projects. It's an important milestone at the European level. But does not mean that we don't need the support of the European Union. In first place, we need that the European Union give credibility to the targets or the renewable energies target for 2030 and the targets of the past. Second one, in this moment, that is the moment to do the review of the directive of renewable energies, we are in a moment that still many aspects of the renewable energies directive has not been transposed to the Spanish regulation. That it's necessary to press to the Spanish government to do the transposition of this directive. And in relation with this review, we would like to see in this review two aspects. One is that we consider that it's the moment to review the targets to be more ambitious. We can do it, and we can do it in a very cheap way. And the second one is the bottleneck that we are discover is the administration procedures. We need to increase the administrative simplification, because now we need to have the risk that we have many people interested to invest, we have the technology, but the speed of the process of ecological transition is not the right one for this bottleneck, particularly for self-consumption. Are a small project that is not justify the complex administrative procedure that there is in several places. It's necessary to work deeply in this simplification. If not, we have the risk that will not go to the speed that we need to advance in the process of ecological transition. Thank you very much. You are doing a very excellent job from the European Commission. We need that you continue more in this line.
Okay, then I think that was great final words and a nice introduction already from José Donoso, the president of UNEF, for our next session, which will be a fire chat between Walburga Hemmetsberger, CEO of SolarPower Europe, and Paula Abreu Marquez, head of unit at renewables at DG ENER of the European Commission, to reflect some of what we've learned today. This will be a fire chat, several questions, several short answers. I'm very excited. The floor is yours. Welcome, Walburga. Welcome, Paula.
Thanks very much, Michael. Hello to everyone. Hello, Paula. It is great to have you here today. And as Michael already said, I have 12 questions for approximately 12 minutes, and I'm going to fire them to you now. Paula, we have a great Christmas present for you, 11% solar growth in this year, despite COVID, and the best ever result, plus 80 gigawatt. What's your first reaction to that?
Actually, it was my intention to start my first response to your fire chat with congratulations to the solar sector. It's just proven the resilience of this technology and of the sector. I think it's amazing, it's very encouraging, and really, if you're able to grow with 11% in such a year, I mean, it's you will grow even more next year and the years after. So really, congratulations. I think we need that. I think it's an encouraging, a very encouraging development in the light of the necessary increase in ambition. But I think we'll come to that later.
Thanks for that first reaction. 3/4 of that growth is coming from 5 big markets. But you know, the smaller markets are catching up as well, but they might need a little push, and we might need to help them a little bit in ambition. What can we do to motivate them?
So first of all, going back perhaps then to the ambition, I mean, you saw that European Council has agreed on the 55 greenhouse gas reduction for 2030. This is a very, very important milestone because this means as well that member states are ready or should be ready to increase the level of ambition for renewables. And here, of course, we need more solar. And solar is perhaps one of the renewable energy technologies that you can find everywhere. That you can apply everywhere. And perhaps I will pick up one element from your report, which is the rooftop, and the fact that, sorry, I have to and the rooftop, and the fact that 90% of that space is still free and unused. That exists in every member state, big and small member states. So what can we do there? First of all, I mean, we are establishing, and the Clean Energy Package already did so, an enabling policy framework. But we are not just done. We have not just done that, because, as you know, we are kickstarting again a major revision of our policy framework to enable greater integration of renewables, including solar, in a cost-effective way. So what we are doing is, first of all, to adjust policy rules to facilitate that, and secondly, coming also with a big help with our multi-annual financial framework that, by the way, European Council has also agreed last week. And you know that 37% of that money has to go to climate action, so climate, environment, and energy action. So I think that there are two big signals: regulatory revision, policy enablers, and at the same time to have a good financial package.
Maybe just sticking to that one a little. Next Generation EU, it's great to have the budget now finally agreed by the member states. And you mentioned rooftop solar as one of the initiatives, which can be very interesting. What are the other initiatives which are most promising, actually, to boost solar?
So I would say that, I mean, in terms of the Next Generation EU and the flagships that you saw, I think it is with great pleasure that I see that solar can fit into several of them, and this is also comes out of your analysis. I would refer the Power Up, so to increase electrification, and obviously that electrification has to be based on renewables to facilitate that integration, and also the renovation wave. I mean, there is ample of opportunities, and one thing that I appreciate over this year is that we stopped looking at actions in buildings, stopped just looking at the energy efficient aspects of that, and it's much more now also focused on integration of renewables in the buildings. I mean, and buildings is no doubt one of the areas that we have to look at as a potential. Since it offers great potential to mainstream renewables, we'll be looking at ways to improve that also in the revision of the Renewable Energy Directive.
That's really good news, because talking about ambition, we still see a lack of ambition in the NECPS. I mean, more than 55% will greatly help. But what we see in our 100% renewable study, and that's what Michael already mentioned in his presentation, is we need 2.5 times more solar in order to get us on the path to a 100% renewable system. So how can we support member states? Because in the end, it's a win-win. Solar, as you already said, is the lowest cost technology. It's also the most flexible technology. So why not just go for it? What can we do to unleash that potential?
And Walburga, don't forget that is not only the cost competitive, flexible, but also it creates a lot of jobs. And this is what Europe needs to look with urgency, especially in the aftermath of this economic crisis brought by health issues. So, I mean, the construction sector has 10% of workforce in Europe, and everything related to the renovation of buildings, and including integration of solar PV. I mean, can have a brilliant impact in terms of job. I think this should be very much looked at. What can we do? First of all, I mean, we are still in the period while we are starting to review our legislation for renewables, and this is let's say in the aftermath of an increased ambition that we need to have for renewables, but also to implement the energy system integration follow-up actions. So we are revising the legislation, but at the same time, we are implementing the RED II, the Renewable Energy Directive. And I'd like to underline this very strongly. So we will not disregard the correct implementation of RED II. It's fundamental. I think we've done big steps ahead with this RED II, the Renewable Energy Directive of 2018. Big steps on issues that were usually left to member states, policy governance, and it's an important step ahead that we need to make sure that is correctly transposed and implemented. I want to believe that perhaps the lack of inclusiveness in the NECPS of certain elements is just due to the fact that member states are still transposing the directive, and you know that they have until June next year to do so. We'll stay very vigilant, and also facilitate member states in this work of transposition. Of course, it's not easy. We have also to understand it's not easy, because for many of them, these are complete new areas. Okay, on the self-consumption, on administrative procedures, on having a one-stop shop. So these are all is not a bad will, it's difficulties also in implementation. So what can we do here? On our side is guiding member states, allowing exchange of experience. We have a very good platform for that, which is the concerted action. So enabling those experienced member states to explain how they did and successfully that in their countries. From your side, what I think would be necessary is really to give this confidence to exemplify with, okay, this would be a good way for you to do it, because in the renewable, if we are able to get across the EU a correct implementation of all the provisions regarding administrative procedures, the one-stop shop, the permitting time, the duration of the permitting procedures, if we can have the self-consumption provisions right, the PPAs, all sorts, all these minor, let's say, elements perhaps of the directive that can bring a lot of impact on the ground, since it will enable investments to come through. So also on your side, I think there is a great deal of support that you can give to the member states administrations that are carrying this transposition.
Absolutely, and I think that's a good transition to the next questions, because I would like to zoom in the three markets which we presented just right now: Germany, the Netherlands, and Spain. And first, to a little bit dig into Germany. What we've heard is Germany has been the leading market for 2 decades almost, but there's some clouds coming up with the renewable legislation, and that's just the contrary what you would expect, actually. And it's making life in particular difficult for citizens. And I very much take your proposal, and we have a lot of best practice examples which we would like to share with member states. But how can we make sure that citizens really play the role they should play, and that they are not burdened with any rules prohibiting prosumers? In the end, it's again transposition of the rules you already have, no?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I don't want to repeat myself. Of course, it's important that the various member states, including Germany, leading market, as you said, again this year, that the Renewable Energy Directive is correctly implemented. So it's still, for us, it's still early to, let's say, to work on that. We have to wait for June, but we are following very closely the situation in Germany and also in other member states. So first of all, the correct implementation. Secondly, and in case, there is another provision which is very important in the RED II that for sure you will remember is Article 6 on the non-retroactivity. So we have also to member states have to be very careful also with the measures they put on, and to avoid let's say, being at risk of not respecting that provision, which is extremely important. On top of that, I mean, as we already discussed here, I mean, there are in the next generation EU, so the recovery and resilience funds. I mean, there are. When we look at the power up, when you look at the renovation of buildings actions, or in both. You see a great deal of priority for small scale, for the small scale renewables integration. And here really we are appealing at the energy communities, we are appealing at the self-consumption. We are, I mean, in a way, we are looking at the important role that decentralized generation has for providing, for enabling Europe to reach much higher targets of renewable shares in the future.
I think that is super important, and decentralization will play a major role also according to our study. When we look at the segment which is just in between, you know, small scale and large scale, which is the huge potential we have when it comes to industries and the commercial sector who want to source renewables. I would like to zoom in here on what Peter from Holland Solar just said. And he's put the finger really on the bottleneck, GOOs. So this would really enable this segment, industries and commercial sector, to source more renewables, but there's no harmonization, and the system of GOOs is not fully adequate in order to help them source renewables. And that's now turning from the implementation of the current rules into what could be done in a revision of the rules we have, the Renewable Energy Directive. Is there something we can do to have a more direct link between the renewables production and the renewables demand?
Yes, I heard that suggestion. Let me say that first of all, again, RED II was represented an important step ahead when it comes to the GOs, and so anything that we do will have to build on that. So basically what we need to make sure is that you have the necessary harmonization, and that you have the GOs to play the role that they have to play in order to be enablers of increased investment in the sector. Basically that. The thing is, we are kickstarting this revision of the directive, as previously said. We are looking at a number of areas that we consider important to look back again, including on how to give, let's say, more incentives to industry to be a player, let's say, in this in the renewable energy sector. So we are looking at that, and also looking at possible ways to improve even further the GO system. So every proposal that you come up with, it's very important to us. Please don't hesitate to use the open public consultation that we have launched last month, and it is open until February to bring up your ideas, or even just if you don't want to just wait for that, just reach out to us to discuss these ideas.
You can count on us, Paula, on that one. Maybe because we are running late in time, and I'm already combining a couple of questions, but I would like to stay a little bit looking into the future. Hydrogen is the talk of town. And if we talk about hydrogen, we also talk about renewable hydrogen. That's, at least we're very happy what the hydrogen strategy of the European Commission says. We are convinced that we can produce this hydrogen with renewables in Europe, but I would like to have your opinion. And if you are conquering what we think, would we need a higher renewables target, even higher than, you know, the impact assessment shows, in between 38 and 40%? Would we have to go higher?
First of all, I mean, we need more more electricity. I mean, electrification. Okay, this is expected, and we need that electrification, that electricity to be based on renewables. So this is to start with, independently of the hydrogen. So it is well described in our long-term strategy. In terms of hydrogen, you saw that in our strategy, the Commission is our medium long-term focus is renewable hydrogen. We expect it to become cost competitive from 2030 onwards, but of course this means that we need to make that, in order to make that happen, we need to start working on that, investing on that already now. In terms of the external element, this was the first part of your question. It is an important integral part of the strategy. So the international cooperation on two aspects. First, to be able to establish a good governance for renewable hydrogen, globally speaking, in terms of standards, in order to be able to have a global market. Secondly, it is not excluded that there will be possibilities for closer cooperation with our neighbors in the east and south. And of course, everything also depends in terms of how cost competitive that green hydrogen could be for Europe. Okay. But I mean, so we included it in the strategy. We are strong believers on the international dimension of hydrogen, and that the EU as a leader has a role to play. And again, our neighbors are an important target here. I mean, can have broader implications than simple, not only energy implications, can have important social implications also, positively speaking, I mean. So, I mean, we expect to need more electrification, more renewables, renewable electricity, but we see that in our comprehensive impact assessment for a 55 greenhouse gas reduction in 2030, the 38 to 40% renewables already encompassed the fact that hydrogen and renewable hydrogen will have an increasing role across the next this decade, let's say until 2030. So it is already encompassed there, but I would like also to be positively impressed. So the EU had established a minimum of 32% of renewables for 2030. And you saw, putting the NECPS all together, we are beyond that. So I hope also that once we do the similar exercise for the increased ambition, that will be beyond the 40%.
Two last questions, one relating to what you just said when it comes to Europe leading in a technology. As Aurélie has set out, we have the great opportunity today with the growth figures you've just seen, that we will also be leading on PV manufacturing, again, in those areas where we have been lacking a little bit. We're still leaders in many areas of the value chain when it comes to PV, but some are not so some have moved to other parts of the world. Do you also see that opportunity, and what should we do? What are the key priorities in order to support PV manufacturing in Europe?
I think, I mean, Walburga, I think this is, I mean, we have a key opportunity here, which is also brought by the enhanced ambition that EU has, and the fact that the 27 member states have all agreed to a 55% greenhouse gas reduction gives a good signal. And it's again a proof of our leadership. Okay, and 5 years after Paris Agreement, this is all, I mean, very symbolic, but very, very important. So I think that the world is also expecting Europe to show some moves when it comes to the manufacturing and looking at these gaps in our value chain. So I think that this is an important opportunity for your sector. I think that the important element here is to be able to innovate, and there are a lot of new technologies coming on stream, and really there is a need to focus on those and support those, and to bring them to the market. And this is where I think that in terms of manufacturing, there is an opportunity back to Europe. But of course, we need continuous innovation. To be in a leading position, we need to continue innovation, and also other aspects, including to be able to keep a skilled workforce. So also the skills are something that should not be forgotten in this leadership and in this leadership ambition, and when it comes to manufacturing. So perhaps here, allow me to say that we will early next year, and actually in February, we will be launching the Clean Industrial Forum 2.0, let's say. This is one of the areas we should be looking more carefully, with greater attention in the future, in the context of the forum.
Great, thanks very much. I told you I have two questions. One very last one to end with. The 10E will be published today, if it hasn't been published in the last minutes. Will we still see fossil infrastructure being supported in the next years?
I'm not going to reveal. I think you'll have in a few minutes. You'll have it on your screen. So the college is adopting today the 10E. This is the first of a series of regulatory revisions. It's an important one, and will give an important signal. Without going into the details of it, I don't think it would be fair to my colleagues. What I can tell you is that both the Green Deal, the next multi-annual financial framework, the next generation EU, I mean, all these are important and key elements of the EU policy that are all well aligned. Okay, and the aim is the decarbonization. The aim is 2050 carbon neutrality. So every single proposal that the Commission is putting on the table and will put on the table goes in the same direction. So I think that's what you can expect also to start with in the 10E, and I'm sure you will not be disappointed.
Great, thanks very much. That's a good ending. We will not be disappointed. Thanks very much, Paula. It was a real pleasure talking to you, even if the fire in between us was missing. In this fire. Thanks very much. I wish you a very nice Christmas, and I hand over to Michael again. Thank you.
Thank you very much for you too. Thank you very much. A nice Christmas with lots of renewed energies and with lots of sunshine at Christmas. We need it.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks, Walburga. That was wonderful, this fire chat. Okay, 3 takeaways from me. First, we got a pre-Christmas present here. Solar presented us with a big surprise, market growth in 2020 in the EU. Nobody would have expected that. Solar industry is ready to push installation even under such adverse conditions of COVID-19. Really big surprise. Second, basically, all member states have acknowledged solar in their national energy climate plans for 2030. Unfortunately, their ambition is not high enough. Third, it's really great, and it was good to have Paula with us, to see that the European Commission has been setting ambitious carbon reduction targets towards climate neutrality via its Green Deal, and also through the tools offered through the Next Generation EU Recovery Plan that tie a big amount of money, around 1/3 of the financial support for member states to climate-related expenditures. So we are now looking forward. Walburga actually tried to discuss that with Paula. We are now looking forward at further support for solar in the upcoming revision of the Renewable Energy Directive to enable even more rapid solar growth in Europe, simply for the lowest cost, most flexible and job-creating technology, which we present, become the main pillar of the energy transition and meet the Paris targets. You can download the report, I think, now on our website. Happy reading, Merry Christmas from SolarPower Europe. Please, everyone, stay healthy, and looking forward to working together on solar growth in Europe again next year. Bye-bye from SolarPower Europe.